All right, folks. I did a video talking about masculine and feminine energy, and I want to continue discussing this duality, the interaction or the relationship between masculine and feminine energy, and that without careful and skillful governance, masculine and feminine energy is very destructive. That's why relationships are so hard to build, and not to get into, but to build and to maintain. Because without proper, skillful, meticulous, fastidious attention to the details of masculine and feminine energy, those energies can be destructive. And the reason for that is because of a science called depolarization. And the best way I can explain polarization first and depolarization, which I discussed before, is by using the analogy of a battery. The battery is analogous to us as human beings. And on a battery, we have a positive terminal and we have a negative terminal. The positive terminal would be representative of the or analogous to the masculine energy. And the negative terminal would be considered the feminine. The negative terminal would be representative of the feminine, feminine energy, right? Masculine and feminine. So the negative terminal will be considered the feminine energy, the feminine, femininity. But what's interesting is the people would think like negative. Why does the feminine energy, why is it representative by the negative? But when you understand the science and you understand the bigger picture of life and the world and how everything operates, negative energy is necessary to life as much as positive energy is necessary to life. It's the yin and the yang. The yang being the positive, the yin being the negative, the yin and the yang. You need them both. It's what causes the balance of life, right? You need death, because without death, you would have what's called overpopulation, overcrowding, and the world would be unsustainable as we know it. So death is necessary as much as life. So there is no, so when you understand the science, there is no negative or positive. It's one, just opposite ends of the same coin or opposite ends of the spectrum. So, continuing with the battery is the analogy. So again, you have the positive end, you have the negative end terminals, and the positive represents the masculine, the negative represents the feminine energy. But what's interesting is that the feminine, on the battery, it's called an anion or an anode, right? It's called an anode, and it's called a cathode. Cathode would be, well, first let's go back. It's called an electrode. The electrode is what allows the current to flow. So it's a conductor, the electrode. Let's break this down. The electrode is subset. It's bifurcated into what's called the cathode. The cathode runs to the positive terminal. And you have an anode. An anode is directed towards the negative terminal. And the negative terminal is where electrons are stored. So the negative terminal of a battery has stored energy that are called electrons, or you can call, or no, they're called electrons, but you have what's also called an electrolyte inside of the battery. These are the components. And the electrolyte is a gel-like or liquid substance that is electrically charged with particles that are called ions. These electrolytes allow the flow or the electric current to flow from the anode, which is where the storage of electrons, negatively charged particles they are transferred. They flow towards the cathode, which is the positively charged part of the battery. And in that flow, electrical charges is released into the device that the battery is in, a flashlight, for instance, And the flashlight bulb, which is called a load, would take the electrical charge, and energy is never destroyed or created. It's just transferred or transformed. So that takes the electrical charge that is released as a result of the vibration of the gyration of the electrons, which is in the anode, being transmitted to the cathode, which is the positively charged part of the battery. The electrical current, the electrical charges that is released in that transmission is what lights the flashlight, the actual bulb. So that's pretty much how a battery works. That's analogous to the relationship between you and your partner in terms of the opposite energy, you and your significant other. What's interesting, what I learned from this science is that the electrons, which is in the anode, naturally, organically flows towards the cathode, and in so doing gives it energy. The cathode becomes energized, positively charged. And what I found interesting about that is, remember, I'm using the battery as an analogy to tell you how we as organisms, as species, are to interact with our counterpart. What's the importance? What is the purpose of the woman in your life and the man in the woman's life? Now, if you think about it, the anodes flow towards the cathode, and it becomes positively charged. So what that means is, if the anode is representative of feminine energy, then that means your woman, her feminine energy flows naturally towards you as the man, and it empowers you. Because if the cathode is representative of masculine energy and the anode is representative of feminine energy, the feminine energy flows naturally without you trying. Why? Because the laws of opposites attract, right? Because one is negative, one is positive. So therefore there's an inherent and natural attraction. So the electrons are naturally attracted to the cathode, which is the positively charged end of the battery. And that flow bolsters and allows the positively charged part of the battery to become empowered. And in so doing, it releases the electrical charge, which gives light to the device, or music to the radio, or to your stopwatch, or to whatever the device may be. But what's analogous, and what I want us to learn from this, is that in terms of the purpose of the woman in your life, her feminine energy is naturally flowing towards your masculine energy and empowering you. This is why it's so important to have the right woman in your life, because her feminine energy is naturally going to be flowing towards you. And when that energy interacts with you, remember, there's resonance. When that energy interacts with your masculine energy, and there's a resonating effect, which means that those two energies combine, they're in sync, they become stronger. The energy becomes, your masculine energy becomes stronger. And just like with the battery, when the energy is transmitted, it gives light to the flashlight. It gives sound to the radio. It gives depiction to the television. It converts the energy into something that is useful. So when you as a man have a woman in your life, her energy, her feminine, it is vitally important that her feminine energy is towards you. It is pure. It has your best interests, because that energy is going to be naturally flowing towards you, whether you like it or not. And your masculine energy is an absorber of her feminine energy, because the cathode absorbs the anode. I'll say that again. The cathode absorbs the anode in the battery. The battery, again, at the base is where electrons congregate, and from there it flows to the top, which is the cathode, which is the positively charged area of the battery. So you as the man, you are going to naturally absorb your woman's energy if she's the anode, representative of the anode, which is the feminine energy. And again, it has to go this way. This is not my theory, my hypothesis, my opinion, or my gesticulation. This is literally the science, that anodes flow, which is electrons, naturally and speedily and readily. There's an alacrity. That's a new word. Not new, but I like that word. It's alacrity, which means with readyful cheerfulness, willingness. The cathode naturally flows towards the anode naturally flows towards the cathode. And again, both are representative of masculine the cathode, and feminine, the anode, femininity, feminine energy and masculine energy. So when these two energies, and now when these two energies can synchronize, which is resonance, it becomes stronger. The power, the energy becomes stronger. So this is why they always say behind every great man is a great woman, right? Because of that science that I just explained. And this is why it's so crucial, so critical that you have the right kind of woman in your life, gentlemen. And for the woman, it's also just as critical, because what the woman adds to the man in terms of empowerment by her feminine energy, what the man adds to the woman in terms of his masculine energy is focus, clarity, drive, ambition, determination, goal-oriented. These are all the features or the characteristics of masculine energy. So when it's also just as important for the woman to make sure she have the right energy in the masculinity in terms of the man she's with. So it's a complementary relationship, right? It's a complementary relationship. Now, I mentioned depolarization is when these two energies, masculine and feminine, are in total destabilization. So her energy, which naturally flows, if it's bad, if it's negative in a bad sense, if it's not wholesome, if it's not healthy, then she's going to her energy is going to destabilize the masculine energy. And in destabilization, there's disorder, and where there's disorder, there's distress and tension and destabilization, and that comes out just like the energy and the battery comes out, the flashlight, in the forms of light or in the form of sound or music or whatever the device is. It's going to, that destabilization or that distortion, that disarray, that disorderliness, that stress, that distress, that craziness, it's going to come out in your actions, because energy becomes solidified and resonates and becomes stronger. And then it comes out in your action, whether that action be violence, whether it be the constant fighting, whether it be your finances is being thrown into disarray, your world is being turned upside down. That is all a result of the destabilization or depolarization of masculine and feminine energy. So again, this is the science as to why looks don't matter. I'm going to say that again. This is the science to why a curvaceous, sexy, beautiful dime piece chick does not mean a damn thing to a real man. I'm going to say that again. And I emphasize real man, because when you become a man, not a boy, when you man up, you understand that until you tap into this science, you're going to be living in a natural, you're going to live in a low, bestial nature. You're going to live in a low bestial nature, which is your bestial psychology, bestiality, the animal kingdom that we all belong to. You're going to stay there. You're never going to matriculate into divinity, your divine self, because a man, remember the word men is from the Latin mens, which means to think, or pertaining to the mind or to thought. That's the word man. Man comes from the Latin mens, excuse me. And men's mean, if you look up the word men and you look at the etymology and you do the root research, it means to think. So a man who is governed by reason, his cognition faculties are more intellectually oriented, you will know that a gorgeous, sexy, fine dime piece means nothing. They mean absolutely nothing. A shallow answer as well, they get old and the body fades anyway. All that sexiness is going to fade anyway. Gravity is going to pull her body down anyway, naturally. That's the shallow answer. The deep answer is what I just gave you in the aforementioned. Watch the video again. In the aforementioned, I outlined why it means nothing. What means everything to a man and his purpose and his journey and his greatness is the feminine energy being transmitted, emitted, projected, emanating out of that woman into him on a 24/7 basis. Because once you lie with a woman, gentlemen, you have connected with her on a spiritual socket, plug socket kind of connection. Think about the biological function. You insert into her. You insert your member, your loin, into her into her. You literally plant your seed into her. So there's a socket plug relationship between a man and a woman. And you are biologically extracting her energy. You're taking in her energy. Yes, she takes in yours, but you take in more in terms of the feminine masculine dynamics. How the cycle works. Again, study batteries, research batteries. I actually did that. I spent last night, I was up all night just reading about how batteries operate, looking at the fundamentals, looking at the basics, looking at the component parts, the cathode, the anode, the electrode, the electrolytes, the separator, the conductor. So I mean, you know, and if you understand how the battery works, and here's why I studied the battery. The Hermetic philosophy is as above, so below. As within, so without. Everything outside in your universe is a spin-off or a duplicate or a replicate or a knockoff of what goes on inside of your body. If you study your body, you'll learn everything out here in the world is a copy, a carbon copy of what's already inside of your body. Your body holds the answers to everything in the universe. Your atoms literally is designed just like the solar system. When you look at the electrons, the nucleus, the proton, it's the same exact setup. So once you start to study your internal atmosphere, you're going to learn about your external atmosphere. You'll know everything about your external environment. So gentlemen, ladies, again, looks very, very small. The looks is just the attention grabber. That's what gets your attention. You see somebody, okay, there's a physical. But trust me, it is a fraction of a percent when it comes to creating love or creating that chemistry between masculinity and femininity, being able to get the chemistry. And the chemistry is the interaction of two elements, and what caused those two elements to either combine and create another element of its kind, or to separate as a result of those two elements having a repulsive as opposed to an attractive reaction. And this is called an electrochemical reaction or biochemical election in terms of human beings, a human species. So again, folks, just want to share my 2 cents on masculine, feminine, and the importance of understanding the science of it, so that we can figure out this thing we call relationships with our counterparts, man-woman counterpart, and see if we can have some more success with this thing called black love or light skin love or red bone love, whatever we want to call it. Till next time, peace.